Alrighty, everybody, welcome into News this time to me. I'm about to start reading the book of Mark to you, chapter 5 and 6. So we're just gonna get started. I was reading through this and I realized my thing wasn't on record. But as I'm reading through this, I'll explain it when we get a little bit further. But I'm gonna start reading a lot of this. I'm just gonna skim through right now because I read it already, and I might talk about some of it. So, all right. Jesus restores a demon-possessed man. Chapter 5. They went across to the lake, to the region of the Garneshen. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came to the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot, and he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his foot. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell to his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "The man in Legion," he replied. "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on a nearby hillside. The demon begged Jesus to send us among the pigs. "Allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirit came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind. They were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told him about the pigs as they as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their legion. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and who has and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. So Jesus got rid of these evil spirits from this man, and the guy went back and told everybody that he knew about what Jesus had done for him and how powerful Jesus Christ was, and all these events that just took place around what just happened. So, all right, Jesus raised a dead girl and heals a sick woman. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large a large crowd gathered around him. While he was by the lake, then out of the synagogue, leaders named Jairus came, and he saw Jesus and fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hand on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him, A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind and him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought if she touched his cloak, she will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt her body that was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes? You see the people crowding against you." His disciple answered, "And yet, you can ask who touched me." But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. The woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembled with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her daughter, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "The daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brothers of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Telleth Korum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders to uh, not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. So Jesus healed this woman that was internally bleeding for a long, long time, and then Jesus also healed this girl that was apparently dead. So, alright. Well, he resurrected the girl, sorry. Alright, chapter 6. A prophet without honor. Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. "Where did this man get these things?" they asked. "What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he is performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and brother James, Joseph, Judas, and son, Simon? Aren't his sister here with us?" They took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home." He could not do anything. He could not do any miracles there, except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. So Jesus didn't understand why they didn't see why they didn't understand why he was healing anybody or anything like that. Hold on, let me do something here. Well, let me see. Let's turn this light up a little bit. Where is it? There it is. Right, it's kind of dark, so It's a little bit better. Yeah, that's definitely better because it comes in this angle too. Okay. Jesus sends out the 12. Then Jesus went around teaching from the village to village, calling the 12 to him. He began to send out two by two and gave them authority over the impure spirits. These were his instructions: take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belt. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay here until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, then leave this place and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. They went out and preached that the people should repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. So Jesus gave them all the rules to follow, and they went around, explaining it to people. All right. So this is the part where, when I was recording it last time, I was like, why is this like repeating itself? And you'll notice that it is by this next title because we read about this in Matthew where this had happened. And it's all just like repeating itself. So I'm kind of confused as to what's going on. So, John the Baptist beheaded. King Herod heard about this, for Jesus had become well known. Some were saying John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others said others said he is Elijah, and still others claimed he is a prophet, like one of the prophets long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, John, whom I beheaded, has raised from the dead. For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and have him bound and put in prison. He did this because Herod, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married, for John had been saying to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. So Herod's nursed a grudge against John and wanted him killed. But she was not able, because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be righteous and a holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and a leading man of Galilee. When the daughter of Herod's came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. The king said to the girl, ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And he promised her with an oath, whatever you ask, I will give. Up to half of my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, what shall I ask for? The head of John the Baptist, she answered. At once the girl hurried to the king with the request, I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The king was greatly distressed, but because of his oath and his dinner guest, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with an order to bring John's head. The man went, beheaded John in prison, and brought back his head on a platter. He presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. So again, right there we see that happen all over again. And I'm trying to figure out why we see it for a second time. If he rose back from the dead, why would somebody go and do this to this guy? So, Jesus feeds 5,000. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught and, and taught. Then, because of so many people were coming and going that they did not have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourself to be quiet in place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and their head got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. By the time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. "This is a remote place," they said, "and it's already very late. Send people away so that they can go to surround the courtyard, countryside, and village, but themselves something, and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "That would take more than half year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give them, give it to them?" "How many loaves do you have?" he asked. "Go and see." When they found out, they said, "5, and 2 fish." Then Jesus directed them to have all people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples and to his distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. Jesus walks on water. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethesda. While he dismissed the crowd, after leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that day, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars, because the wind was against them. Shortly before the dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. When they had crossed over, they landed in Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout the whole region and carried the sick on mats to whatever they heard he was, and wherever he went, into the villages, towns, and countryside. They placed the sick in the marketplace. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. All right, so that's where we stop. So again, yeah, these guys saw Jesus and they were like kind of confused why he was standing on top of the water. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if there's like a reference to some of this what's going on here or why it's just all repeating itself because it's like Jesus ends up like he predicted himself dying like 3 times. So and we're starting to see that all play out. In fact, this is like a backwards version of what like a mirrored version of what you know Jesus Christ did before because we're seeing it all like in reverse. Like right here, we're seeing the laws again later on. Like I'm looking through everything and you know we're seeing a lot of stuff that just he did before play out differently this time. So um I'm not sure the meaning behind all of it. I'm gonna research it and see what it means. But so far, it's interesting to see what happens with Jesus, how he was and all that. And we could just be seeing like 3 different ways Jesus Christ took on his life. You know, because when you think about it, we still believe that Jesus walks among us. He could be alive right now walking. We don't really know. But, Jesus Christ, it looks like Jesus Christ lived like more than once in his life, so. But anyway, with that said, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Take it easy, and God bless.